no matter how many times we do the smash here, Ira, and we're live, I get excited by the countdown clock.
I love the countdown clock.
The countdown clock is something special. Do all the people in the chat watching see the countdown clock too?
I hope
Everybody
so.
sees the countdown clock? It's a
I hope
reason
so.
to celebrate. It's like New Year's every time we do it, man.
I just get more excited as the clock ticks down. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Okay, so it's bright behind me. You guys can see that. We're here in Charlotte for the ACC Kickoff. Welcome into the Smash, brought to you by our friend RussVorhis.com, State Farm. Talk about Russ. All right.
That's a professional.
Yeah. Way to go,
yeah, man,
Russ. Endowed scholarship. Russ is awesome.
I think this is our third episode with Russ as our title sponsor with State Farm. And I've known Russ for a long time. A lot of Florida State fans have as well. What was cool was the first time he sponsored the show, the first installment of the show earlier this month when we unveiled him as a title sponsor. He texted me that night and said, dude, my phone is blowing up.
Boom!
Which was good to hear. We love to hear that. And I told him now we just got to follow it up with some sales.
It's going to happen. I think somebody calls Russ tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, he's Jacksonville Beach, Orange Park, anywhere in the Southeast.
Yeah,
Forget about
right.
it.
So he's got locations there, State Farm Insurance, those two locations in the Jacksonville area. But he services the Southeast, basically, Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. If you've got any insurance needs, Russ is the guy to call. He's a lifelong Nole. As you said, he's endowed a scholarship, been
awesome.
A big booster for 20 years, very involved in the program. He's already texted me last week when we were in Ireland, talking about the package he's buying to go to Ireland. So he's all about the Noles, and we're happy he's on board.
RussVorhis.com to learn more. We are here. Fire away, I should say, with your questions, guys, in the chat. We've been here since early this morning, and it is now dinner time, so we're going to get you through 45 good minutes is what Ira and I have agreed upon here.
Usually the Smash, we might maybe have a couple beverages.
I'm ready for one.
We're actually in here in the work facility in the radio row for ACC Kickoff, so that probably wouldn't be appropriate. Tom said we couldn't bring the booze, but rest assured we'll be smashing a few once we get done with the show.
We will, along with some food, ready to eat. It's going to be a good time.
And you guys can be smashing away. It's just us.
Hey now, with this on in the background, how about that? What an honor! I would just note here, the day began with the commissioner's press conference. We already did a stand-up about that, and he happened to walk past us. Go find that video that Aslan posted. It's awesome. As the commissioner hurriedly passes and hears his name besmirched yet again, as he does. And
I was glad to go back and watch and see you were the one talking. You were the one doing the besmirching. So I mean, my hands are clean. I didn't do anything, Mr. Phillips.
Do you think he whispered figures? Embittered as he might be. I do want to say thank you, guys. I see that Michael Brown is shouting us out from Columbia, South Carolina. I saw where we had some folks from Oklahoma. There we go, Boomer. And there we go. We got people weighing in on where they're watching and enjoying the show. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and we've got plenty of content up on the site and also Warchant TV. We've got
let's lay it out there, man. What else?
Corey wrote a story about Jim Phillips' initial comments, as disappointing as maybe they might have been to some people. We also Matt Lasser, University of Miami's football players and coaching staff, spoke today. So Matt Lasser did a story off of them, looking ahead to playing Florida State after their back-to-back losses to the Noles the last 2 years, including I don't know if you recall, it was 45-3, Jeff.
45-3, not 42, not 44, 45-3. I thought it was interesting. I brought that game up along with the one previous to Tyler Van Dyke.
Did you really?
I did. I brought it up.
How did that go?
But I didn't dwell on the 45-3 game. I mentioned that they were banged up with injuries, and it was a lopsided affair. He's well aware of it, but I reminded him. But I brought up the one in Doak from a couple of years earlier, and I wanted to see what his reaction was to that. And I told him he played very well in the second half.
He
thought I was not. He did. He played really well. I felt like I was nice the way that I led us into the conversation.
Right.
This is crazy. So you're telling us what we've got. Listen, the JCS is going on. Wake Up Warchant is going on. We've got all of that content. Yep.
Yeah, and I actually just wrote a story. They'll be going up on the site a little bit more on the Jim Phillips and the. I think my headline is the 4 most disappointing things Jim Phillips said. I think is the headline. So you only
pick 4.
I stopped before. I felt like that was a good number.
We have a question about my interview with Cristobal. I told Tom this. Damn it, I liked it. I enjoyed the conversation. I liked Mario.
Tom came away the same. He was impressed as well.
Pretty impressive. He was pretty impressive. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean they're going to win. I still hate Miami. But he was a nice guy. He answered the questions. He was direct, looked me in the eye. He was solid. He understood how to play the game.
I haven't seen the interview yet. I look forward to seing it. You guys are going to be sprinkling those interviews out on the YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And Aslan got some interviews as well. Those will be showing up on Warchant TV. But I would say this, even though I haven't seen that interview, that does not surprise me. Like, you could see if you were talking to him or if you were in a press conference with him, you could walk away feeling like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. He speaks with conviction. He's passionate. He's obviously played the game at a high level, been around it his whole life. It should work. But, man, like, nothing you hear out of there is really along with those lines. Now, we'll see. They do have a bunch of new coaches.
Yeah,
I think they've got over 40 new players on their roster. You know, it's a Colorado Southeast.
When you get beat 45-3, you make changes. You really do. You go, guys, that's it. I think that's all the evidence we need. We got to restart this thing and whip up our ponies and go a different direction.
But he also was replacing a lot of coaches that he hired in the first place.
Yeah, it's a bad look.
So
I brought up the coaching changes. This is the part I liked, Ira, and then we'll move on. Because I was trying to be delicate. I was like, some coaches left on their own accord. Others you decided to make a change with. When you're doing that, how do you go about the process? I was kind of asking him about how he evaluates. And, he answered directly. He said, listen, there's no reason to try to present it as something that it's not. Sometimes you have to sit down with somebody and say, you're going to work out better somewhere else, and I need to move on. He handled that. Right. And I thought, okay, that was the best part. So that's all we're saying. You guys will see that interview tomorrow. We'll have it posted. And I see you, James B. Man, you're always too kind, and we appreciate it. Thanks so much for the great work you guys are doing. Question, what is the scuttlebutt on NIL? Do people there actually believe Congress will get involved anytime soon? No, I don't think they do believe that. I'm not speaking for everybody there here, I should say, but I don't think they believe that that's on the horizon. It's going to happen soon. Yeah,
I don't know. We did a video a week or two ago with Peter Schoenthal, NIL Pete, on our message boards and on Twitter, who is really knowledgeable. And he thinks that if they're going to do something, they kind of have to do something here really quickly to try to there is a possibility of doing something, but he wasn't like super confident that would happen.
Well, and I do understand the need to make whatever the decision is going to be or whatever the rule change is going to be. I get that they want this to be unilateral. Right. I mean, they need the rules to be the same in each state.
Well, Jim Phillips basically admitted today. He didn't say it in so many words. I don't know that we could write a story off of it, but he basically, and maybe he did, but he basically said the NCAA is paralyzed right now because all these state laws. Like, all of these states have put in laws that say the NCAA can't come in and punish our schools for doing anything with NIL. And he basically admitted, everybody's kind of wondered what that means, but he basically admitted that the NCAA isn't sure what they can even do right now because of those state laws. So what you'd be asking Congress to do is try to overstep those state bounds and say, okay, we at least have to have an even playing field, because right now that's not the case. Some states have these rules where we can do whatever we want, and there's nothing the NCAA can do about it.
It was a tough day for Jim, as we talked about. Everything he kind of addressed. Tom brought up the point that he looks small this year, and I don't mean in stature. He kind of stuttered his way through that speech as if he had never read what he wrote. I don't know if after last year's disaster, somebody wrote it for him and say, don't you dare go off script. And then he did and brought up live. And everybody's like, what the hell are you doing? No, it was very strange. But it came off puny again. He doesn't have a card to play, save for that. This conference is really good at sports that make them no money.
Yeah, I looked at they won. Real quick, I'm going to get back to James B's question. The other thing, and I think James B may have watched the interview we did with Pete. He may have commented in there, but I think I would reflect back on that to say that no matter what they do in the short term, things should change dramatically if they do go to some sort of revenue sharing with the athletes, whether or not they're called employees or not. Jim Phillips today made a point to say the ACC is not in favor at all of them being student athletes becoming employees, but that doesn't mean they couldn't have revenue sharing. And if revenue sharing happens, that may change. Pete Schoenthal thinks that's going to change the landscape with NIL. We'll see how that all plays out. But back to your point, Jim Phillips, it's one of the four most disappointing things, Jeff. We're giving people a sneak preview of my article. He kept talking about those 9 championships. The ACC won 9 national championships this past year, which is great. But it's fencing and tennis and swimming.
Did they win one in fencing?
Yes.
They did?
Yes. And
Awesome.
swimming and
awesome.
and and it's just like lacrosse, and it's awesome. You should, at an event like this, you should praise those accomplishments.
Yeah.
It's great. But the reality is that doesn't equate to success on the field and what most fans care about. Look, if it wasn't for college football, we wouldn't be in this ballroom. We wouldn't have gone to Charlotte. Nobody goes to Charlotte
to talk about fencing
for lacrosse kickoff. Or
you did mention gymnastics is coming.
It is coming to the ACC. That's true. Or lacrosse kickoff. Or what we're all here for is football. So when you talk about 9 championships and that's proof that the conference is successful, come on, man.
It's unfortunate because he tends to lead with those things, and then that is the through line of the entire speech. He keeps coming back to it. And I'm telling you, when you're sitting here, I'm not telling you, just figuratively, I'm saying that every time he does it, and again, I want to reiterate, congratulations to those sports and those individuals, those athletes that win those championships. We're not diminishing women's sports. We're not diminishing other sports. It's great. Every time he references those sports and it becomes his main talking point, everybody in the room that would like to see the teams in the ACC thrive and have an equal footing to those in the SEC of the Big Ten with an opportunity to compete on a level playing field, roll their eyes and sigh. I think that includes many of the women in the room when he's talking about the basketball announcement or the gymnastics, because they understand that those sports that are succeeding now will not continue to succeed without the influx of major dollars from football. And the more they fall behind, the more likely it is that the coaches that are leading those programs to championships, like Lonnie Alameda at Florida State, are not going to be at Florida State in the coming years, that she will be picked off by South Carolina or Tennessee or whomever it is that has an athletic director that's tired of watching them lose to Florida State, because they can call her and offer her a number that she'll never be able to see matched here. And the further removed we get and the greater that disparity of dollar, the more likely it is that those championships he's alluding to go away as well.
Right.
So you can't live there. You don't even have those. You're basically living in the past when you announce that they've won some championships in non-revenue sports over the last several years. Because while that's cool, it's not going to continue. That money is going to guarantee they don't win those anymore because they're going to get their coaches stolen. There's just a lot there that seems to suggest to me, Ira, that they have no options and they know it. He has to give a speech. What else is he going to do?
Right. Well, I think that's kind of the and I don't know, like, which way is better? I was thinking about this. Kind of the lead to my piece is, is it better to live in kind of fantasy land like John Swafford? John Swafford somewhere on the beach is still selling somebody the idea Notre Dame's going to join the ACC. Like, he's still
right now. He's at a beach bar with somebody.
Moment.
Listen, yeah.
If Notre Dame joins, guys, it's a game changer.
Changes the game.
Or that the ACC network was going to close the gap. Or like Jim Phillips, I think for despite some of the rhetoric, he also was pretty blunt about the fact that, look, Notre Dame's not coming. We're not going to close the revenue gap. Our goal needs to be to just improve where we're at. But if we're focused on trying to close the revenue gap with the SEC and the Big Ten, it's not going to happen. I don't know. Would you rather hear that, or would you rather hear like pie in the sky? I've got some plans that we're going to still somehow manage to save the day.
I thought it was fascinating that he alluded to said plans, Ira, but couldn't give us any details.
Specifics. No, for sure. And that's definitely it's one of the four. We're giving away the whole column.
Well, only to the people that are here for the Smash Buddy.
Right,
they get the special treatment, right? That's what they get. But I would say this, Ira, when he said that, I said in the moment in my head, I don't believe you. And that's crazy. Like, I got the ACC commissioner right there, feet from me, and he's telling me about these big plans, and I'm going, but also, I don't believe you. I don't think that's true.
Well, what are the plans? It's like a bold branding initiative, and it's like, okay. I mean, like we should have Tom and Ben can produce a video and like have like a cash register and like change the dollar. Okay, 75 cents there. Okay, that's $1.50.
We're getting there, guys. Jack, do you have any suggestions? Anything else there? We can get them new socks. What are we doing? It's awful.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is the construct of this conference is what it is. The schools that are in it, these alumni bases, their television ratings call for the ACC to make probably about what it's making. And And
If you're in a conference with Wake and BC, this is about what you're going to be able to do.
Several other schools. And, the last thing I would say about that, though, is like you're unless you're going to make those schools commit to football, what else is going to change? Because he talked about ESPN being a willing partner and having this great relationship. And ESPN's
never had a better relationship.
Never had a better relationship. And ESPN wants nothing more than the ACC to be successful. Okay,
perhaps,
maybe, but okay, what does that mean? We're just going to start giving you more money? No, they're not.
Yeah, it's go pound sand is what that is. Marcus writes, gents, why are success and finance not synonymous in our dear commissioner's eyes? They seem to be in the SEC, and he wants to know over under on trick play TDs this season. Oh wow, might they go to the flea flicker? Ooh. As they did against LSU just a year ago, sir.
I bet Brian Kelly has studied up on the flea flicker.
He said, yeah, boys. Yeah, he has to sit down and talk about the flea, and then he goes into that voice as he does when he answers the phone from Saban. I don't know. Listen, they've got a lot of ways to do it, too, because they have so many talented
you got to quantify, what's a trick play.
Flea flicker's a trick play.
No, I know, but, different a bunch of different players, different non-quarterbacks lining up at quarterback.
They don't need to do that. The better you get, the more you do not have to rely on, or the less you have to rely on the flea flicker. You can just straight up run it down their throat and tell them, hey, this is just a dive. Whereas Miami found out a counter over and over and over again.
40 some odd times.
There you go. Hey, guess what's coming next? Here's another counter. You boys have quit. You're not going to tackle this.
What was the other part of his question?
That was it. I answered.
No, he had another part.
Why success and finance?
Oh. Yeah, the only thing I was going to say is I would never say that money means success or that it guarantees success. See Texas A&M.
Right.
But what I would say is, and what I think, Jim Phillips knows, but he can't say admit is, it creates the opportunity for you to have success. It puts things in place where you can succeed if you can. Otherwise, man, it's just you're banging your head against the wall. If there's a $30 to $40 million gap every year,
it guarantees that you have the opportunity to succeed, as you're pointing out. That is correct. Yes, you could butcher it. Athletic departments do it all the time, screw it up. A&M's been screwing it up for 100 years. But the point is they have an opportunity to make those mistakes and then learn from them and then give somebody else $80 million or $90 million. Eventually, they're going to click on it. They'll get the right guy because they'll be able to afford to do it. Alabama being able to get Nick Saban and pay him $14, $15, $16 million a year is a difference maker. It changes the game. If you get to a place where you cannot compete for the best coaches in the game, it stands to reason that in time you're going to lose out to those who can. It's very simple. And we watch this play out right now in college baseball. We're watching the sports change. The other sports are being dominated now. And even basketball, this was the mecca of basketball forever. The ACC ruled the day. Well, they're waning. They're beginning to fall off. You're watching other conferences take control. Man, it's just it's an obvious math problem here. And there is a small part of me that kind of feels sorry for the guy because we want him to say all these things, but ultimately the things that he can say are not satisfying, and he doesn't have an answer. There's not a magic trick that could make all of this better. Yeah. And it's not his fault.
No, for sure. And that's what I was thinking about. And I wrote it my thing. Like, if you somehow in a different universe put Greg Sankey here and Jim Phillips there, Jim Phillips would be the celebrated commissioner of the Southeast Cup.
To be.
Yeah, and Sankey would be like, guys, we don't forget those fencing titles.
Hey, guys, we need our trash picked up in the neighborhood too. And just letting you know, our community suffers if we're not all treated equally.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Jim Phillips' fault, but I guess it comes down to, again, I think it comes down to whether or not you want him to sell you pie in the sky or give you more realistic. I did think if you cut through, if you remove some of the talk about championships or whatever else, if you just focus on the big picture topics, he was more realistic about what's possible. I mean, that was the first time I remember them saying, look, man, Notre Dame's not coming. And that's basically what he said.
They've been holding on hope for a long time.
We've all known it, but I felt like that was the first time they've basically come right out and said that's not happening.
So let's get to some questions as we go through this here. They want to know, well, first of all, the reason Ira doesn't have a beverage now, and he announced this earlier, Nick, it's because we are actually in the ballroom here where the media is assembled. So it's the working media. So we're not going to be down in beers, although it's not It's not beneath us. We would do it. But then also, how much extra revenue? Derek wants to know how much extra revenue will FSU receive from the CW deal?
I don't actually, it's funny. The CW thing is it's one of those things where I think they did not do a good, one of many things where they didn't do a great job of controlling the message. I don't think it was ever presented or it was ever thought to be like this revenue inducer, but people assumed that that's what it was about. It really was just getting those games that had been RSN games that had just been
access to games.
Any channel somewhere you had to find the channel. You didn't know where it was. Where like now they're going to be on one place. They're going to be on a channel that everybody's cable system basically has.
That's right.
You can get the CW. You can get these games. You don't have to search through 50 different. Do we have UHF channels anymore? Is that still a thing?
It's been a minute. Can you do the little? Remember when you used to twist the thing to try to get it to come in?
It's just 48
it was
or 49.
Almost like a radio station. It was great. You're like, "Whoa, I got it, guys! Stand right there. Stand right there."
But if they had said that from the beginning, I think that would have been. But people heard they had to deal with CW network and kind of laughed. I wasn't going to stop at the joking. I mean, the joking.
It was comical. Yeah, it's not extra revenue to answer your question. It's not extra revenue at all. It just means that you can find it. And then, inexplicably, somehow, in the midst of telling everybody that you now have a channel that we all get anywhere in the country to find ACC games, he somehow then brought up Live. What are we doing? Can you imagine his handlers in the corner? No, just read what's on the page, Jim. Read what's on the page. So no new revenue there. That didn't work out. Anything else that you guys want to know, please feel free. But nothing in terms of an enhancement of revenue is anything that there's nothing there, guys.
No,
you can ask it a million different ways. It's not in there. Fish bait isn't going to do anything for us that I'm aware of. The holistic 8-point plan was not completely revealed. I'm going to use that from here on out.
The 8-point plan.
Yeah, I'm going to use it. I brought up earlier that I thought it reminded me a little bit, like a couple of things he said reminded me when Willie was asked about the quarterback.
Well, so the two best plans we've ever had, at least since we've been covering the beat, and the two best plans, in my opinion, were Willie's quarterback plan, which was we're not signing a quarterback at high school, but we have a plan.
Yeah, we can't tell you what it is, but we have one.
And Jimbo's 5-year plan to hand over play calling. Which was an all-timer. I've got a 5-year plan. I've always had it. It's been right there. 5 years in, I'm going to hand this over. And right now,
still hasn't.
Yeah, just last week at SEC Media Days, he's explaining that he's still not telling anybody whether or not he or Petrino is calling plays.
And the things in which we do.
And I think we all know who's calling plays.
Yeah. By the way, I like this question. Who starts in the slot versus LSU? Vendravius Jacobs?
That's a good question. There's a lot of good candidates.
He's going to have a whole lot of what for on that night because that's a true freshman having to play in that game, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they got some good candidates, man. Like obviously Ja'Kai Douglas has played a lot of football. That LSU game to me makes these questions different than they would be if they were playing the Citadel or whoever. I mean, it's just, are you going to put out a guy like Destin Hill, even who I think is going to be a candidate later as the year goes on? I think Destin Hill, Vendravius Jacobs. Can certainly be candidates. But if Winston Wright is back to what he used to be, if Ja'Kai Douglas is, healthy and good to go, those might make more sense against LSU. I mean, it's just a lot to ask a true freshman against LSU in their first college game to go out there and be a key player.
The good news is they do have bodies. They are versatile. They can line up in a lot of different ways. You can double tight this thing if you want with what they now have at that position, which was not an option before. So Jaheim Bell could be there. I mean, you have a lot of things that you can do. I would tell you that I think early in camp, and here we are, it's happening, Nair. It's happening, buddy.
Days away.
It's happening. We're going to be zeroed in on Winston Wright. We've been very patient. And this isn't to say that we're mad at anybody.
We're disappointed.
Anything like that. But they have been very deliberate and careful, as one would be with a guy coming off of the injuries that he had due to an unfortunate traffic accident that was not his fault. But they need him to be all the way back, all right? He was a guy that played big-time college football in the Power 5 level. He was the leading receiver at West Virginia, and he came here. He was going to – by all accounts, we thought he was going to light it up. Then the unfortunate accident happened. They have had to wait for him to rehab and get strong again and begin to believe and to cut and do those things. They obviously did not let him loose in spring. He ran, but he was not but it was not the full, are you ready to go and play a game against LSU? We got to see that. When they get into pads, we got to see that. And if we don't, then we know we're going to have to look at the other options there. And one of those options is a freshman. Another one of those options, as you mentioned, is a guy that's a veteran player, but I'm not sure they want to start him in the slot necessarily for a game like this. So it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating to see that part of it. See, camp is going to be really interesting because we still have some battles at key positions taking place and some unanswered questions that at the end of spring we didn't know. And we still don't know, and now that competition reignites.
Yeah, do you think camp's going to be different from a standpoint, the competition standpoint? You know, look, man, there's been good competition in camp since Norvell's been here. They practice hard, but I think it might need to be ramped up a little bit more, maybe earlier, from the standpoint of you've got a lot of guys that this coaching staff has not coached in games. You know, we talk about these offensive linemen, Jeremiah Byers and Casey Roddick and Keandre Jones. You talk about the tight ends, Jaheim Bell and Kyle Morlock, and then, you know, the Keon Coleman and all these guys that have been successful wherever they've been before. But this coaching staff has not coached them in a game, and you're opening with LSU. Like, that to me is interesting, and how, because they need to know exactly where they're going to get out of those guys.
Can I trust you
on that night?
Jalen wants to know which would be the most disappointing loss of the season if it were to happen: home versus Miami or on the road at UF? Home versus Miami.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's been really good Florida State teams that have lost at Florida. I mean, Florida
on the road. And they have athletes. Yeah. It's not a terrible. They're not devoid of talent. Yeah. Miami's not either. I think this is a better version of Miami. I know there are people who think they're going to be terrible again. I think part of that is that we want them to be. But if Tyler Van Dyke is healthy and the offensive line is improved, and it does look like it will be, they have the transfer from Alabama. They also got the return services, the tackle who was out last year with the knee injury. He was a 5-star kid. If that's better and they can have a modicum of a run game, they're still average at wide receiver. I really believe that. But if they can block it up, Van Dyke's a good player, man. We've seen that before. I think they can be better. Now, and
they may have a real offensive coordinator now. And,
right. Yeah. I think they can be better. Now, I don't think they're on FSU's level this year. And the games in Tallahassee.
Yeah, so losing them at home
would be devastating. Yeah. And then the Florida games at the end of the year, so we'll see what they are at the end of the season. Florida's going to be kind of up and down this year. That's the answer to that question. Has Darion Williamson taken a step forward? Well, we'll know more once we get into camp. I mean, I can't know here in Charlotte at the ACC kickoff. Yeah. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just saying, like, we need to see him continue to progress.
That's the thing with him, man. Like, when he's on the field and when he's available, he's dynamic. I mean, that game against Boston College last year was a big time performance in just like a quick spurt, 5 catches, just looked really good. But then, you know, he's not always available, and he wasn't always available in the spring, and we'll see what he looks like this fall. But that's it's like, again, when we talked to George Henshaw, Coach Henshaw for Henshaw's House, that will be coming again to Warchant this fall. We'll be doing those articles again starting soon.
Yeah, cool.
One of the things that, this is nothing like revolutionary, but one of the things that comes up repeatedly in our conversation is, in the NFL, man, if you can't play, like, they may feel bad for you, but if you're not available, like, you mean nothing to them. No. Like, you might as well not even exist.
Well, they say it, the greatest ability is availability.
And so college football is different. It's not the NFL. But, at the end of the day, you have to be available. And so it's hard for the coaching staff to really depend on anybody if they're not out there.
And it's really difficult when you're talking about a quarterback-receiver relationship.
Right.
You need to play together in games and big moments. Can I trust you? 3rd and 7. We got to have this play. Are you where you're supposed to be?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it's in fits and starts and stops, you got problems there. So I'm knocking on wood for the kid because I think he wants to be good. He wants to play. He works hard.
And if you went out there and looked at them physically, dude, he's an impressive looking physical specimen.
Were you surprised? This has come up a couple times that Biscuit gained weight.
I was a little surprised by that. Yeah.
275, 285 seems strange to me. He didn't need to get bigger unless you're going to make him a tackle. But the other thing I thought was that obviously, you do have basically a really athletic extra blocker,
right?
In that sense, because you have the 2 other athletic guys. You've got obviously in Morlock the length and all of that, and then obviously what we think Jaheim Bell is going to do. Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be a star this year.
Yeah, it's curious, and that's one of the things that it'll be good talking to Mike Norvell tomorrow when he speaks to the media here Wednesday morning, because there's not a lot of them, but a lot of the weight changes make sense. There's a few that don't make sense, and you're just curious, okay, what was going on there? And the reality is, man, it's 10 pounds for a guy that weighs 280 pounds. If in a preseason camp, he certainly lose 10 pounds pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a huge concern. It would be a concern, though, if look, man, you did bring in 2 tight ends from the transfer portal, and maybe, if it affected Marquiston's feelings about things or something like that, that would be a concern, but we don't know of anything like that.
He got in his feelings? You think
it's
it was
possible.
in his feelings?
In his feels.
Yeah. You think that
That's
happened? I want to point this out, and I like this. If thanks, Patrick. If Jordan Travis goes down, will Rodemaker be ready to take the reins and keep the train going?
I think so with this offense. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think he could. Is it going to be the same as Jordan Travis? No,
of course not. No.
But no, I think he could. Man, I mean, again, I don't think that, to me, the greatest thing Jordan brought this offense a couple of years ago was his threat to run opened up the running game. And I always felt like, as much as you love Trayshawn Ward and, the guys that they've had since Mike Norvell's been here, so much of that was based on the scheme and also Jordan Travis' ability to run. Jordan, you don't need him to run anymore. We saw that last year in games where
it's good to know he can.
It's good to know he can, but you don't have to have it. So I think they can still run the football with Tate at quarterback. And I think with the receivers you have and the offensive line you should have, they should be fine. Now, a game like at Clemson, to me, that's now you're talking about, okay, can he go there and make those plays on the road in that environment against that caliber of defense? We've never seen him do that.
Yeah, there's not a reason to believe that he would, but there's not maybe a reason to believe he wouldn't because of the step he took last year against Louisville when they had to have him. He made big plays with his feet and with his arm. I'd like to believe that infused some confidence in him to make plays against anybody, but you're right. That's a different animal, Clemson, as opposed to Louisville. So we don't know. You're right. It's tough. My guess would be no. I mean, I'm giving you my opinion. I hope you would prove me wrong.
But defining the terms, in a lot of games, you think they'd be fine.
A lot of them they do. The schedule's weak. I think they could win most of the games if he had to start them. Not the games against LSU and Clemson. You need Jordan Travis. We got asked, could this team, and they wrote not to be negative, but do you guys think that this team could start 2-2, go Noles? Sure. I mean, it's a pick'em game basically against LSU, who I still think top to bottom probably has slightly more talent than FSU just in terms of the last several years of recruiting. And then the other's a road game against the umpteenth in a row conference champion that, it beat you back in Tallahassee a year ago. Sure, they could. It wouldn't be stunning at all. I mean, that's something we've all mentioned before, that as much as we think Florida State has taken a huge step forward and should have a great season, I mean, those are 2 very losable games. And then you wonder, if you're 2-2, where's their head at?
Right.
How do they play in those remaining games after splitting the first 4? If that were to happen, that's a big if, because those are all games that are infinitely winnable. And frankly, Florida State should dominate the vast majority of the remaining games once you get past those two of the first 4 games that are so tough.
And they will, assuming that, guys don't get in the tank by that. And again, I think, if you're watching this right now, or if you're, if you were arguing with us, if we were at a bar talking about this, where we'll hopefully be in not too long, the counter you would make is, look, Norvell had this team 0-4 and turned it around. Like, why wouldn't they quit? They didn't quit on 0-4. They're not going to quit on them now. And that's fair. But you also, this roster is very different now. Mm-hmm. I mean, you did bring in a lot of guys that are here for their 1 year. I would say the vast majority of those talented, experienced transfers, proven transfers that came in this year, the vast majority of them are 1 year guys who are here for the opportunity to win a championship, whether it's the ACC or something bigger. And so if those guys see that off the table pretty early and this isn't what they expected, those are the guys I'd be concerned about. But, I mean, there's no reason they can't bring those guys in line. It's not like we've heard any concerns that they're not in line, but that's something you'd be looking for.
Let's hear from our friend Russ Voorhis.
Contact Russ Voorhis for an auto quote today.
I like it, Russ. That is short and sweet. That's like, here you go, man.
It's very well done.
Contact my man. I do think a fan's opinion of what this program is and where it's at will be greatly affected by those 2 games. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, we can say whatever we want. If they lose those 2 games, then people are going to quickly go back to last year and say, look, man, we haven't beaten anybody of consequence. Mm-hmm. They're going to go back, other than the first game against LSU, and it was first game Brian Kelly coached at LSU. They're going to say, you lost to Wake, you lost to Clemson, you lost to NC State. You barely beat Florida at the end of the year. You barely beat Oklahoma at the end of the year, and now you've turned around and right off the bat, you lost to LSU now that they got their sea legs, and then you turn around and lose to Clemson, they still own you. That's what the narrative will be.
Well, then the problem, I guess the problem or the good thing or the bad thing with having those games early in the season is because it would hit you right in the face.
Yeah.
Because I think if you ask a lot of FSU fans, many FSU fans, I think you've said that something along the same lines. If at the end of the season, if Florida State's 10-2 and has a chance to win a bowl game, it's been a pretty good year.
If FSU goes 10-2 and finds a way into the ACC championship game,
then you're feeling
with a shot at revenge, you'd feel pretty good about all that.
And that could be on the table even at 2-2.
Agreed.
But you won't feel that way at 2-2.
Interestingly,
whereas if it was, if it played out differently, it wouldn't feel the same way.
Well, this is easy because you just had the example a year ago when they lost 3 straight games. The mindset collectively of the fans was in the tank. When they won out on the remaining games, we're singing the praises of a win streak in a 10-win season. They weren't so mad about those 3 anymore with each passing win.
Nobody brings those games up anymore.
No. Yeah. So we know how it can look. If they go 2-2, people are going to be pissed, rightfully so, and they're going to hang on to that anger for a little while. But don't let FSU turn around and win 8 straight and find their way to Charlotte for an ACC championship game with a shot at revenge and a conference title. Ain't nobody going to be worried about that 2-2. You know what they'll do? They'll say one of those is a neutral site game against the SEC West champion, has a lot of really good players. The other one's a road game against Clemson, who's got a lot of really good players. In fact, we're probably going to be an underdog in that game. And that's fair.
Right.
But it's also fair to be like, but I get both sides in that situation.
Especially too. We're not going to be asking people to chill out if they're 2-2, because it's been an off season. And look, the reality is they went out, Mike Norvell went out and his staff went out and acquired as much talent as they could because they saw the opportunity.
They're making a run
for this team. You've got a senior quarterback in Jordan Travis, not just a senior, but one of the best quarterbacks in the country. You've got a lot of really nice pieces, a lot of returning experience. You got all that. And then you went out and tried to target the best players you could get. They went big game hunting when you went and getting Keon Coleman.
That was a huge deal. And I wanted that deal. I was the one over here going, I'm not in love with this receiving corps still. I like Johnny, and but we needed to get somebody else. I wasn't at a place where I thought Portier could be a great number 2. I thought he was a solid 3. Right. You needed to find another difference maker to create that balance, and they did. They went out and got him. So what happens is that really, with everything at stake, it makes for an exciting upcoming season. It's why we're pumped up for practice to get started. We still have competition at practice that's going to help decide starters and guys getting different, significant roles to be played. And then also, it's going to change the way we have a conversation about Mike Norvell. If they go 9-3 this year with really high expectations, we're going to say, you know what, he's done a good job of turning the program around. They're in much better shape than they were when he arrived. He still hasn't proven that he can be a great coach. He's just done a good job of getting this thing back on track. If he turns around and goes 11-1, wins the ACC, and they're in the college football playoff, well, my God, we found the guy. Right. I mean, that's how this is going to go, but that's the way it works. It always works that way. As you succeed, you're not a victim of your success. You do have to live up to the new set of standards, though, and you're judged accordingly.
Yeah, and, circumstances can change things. Obviously there could be different things that come up that change how you see things, but from the standpoint of what you have in place, the talent and experience you have, the quality of players you have, the leadership you should have, the schedule you're facing, the opportunities there, everything's set up for them to have a great season.
Yeah.
So it's not like, there might be years where you feel like, okay, it just isn't going to line up. Like we're really talented, but we've got a ridiculously difficult schedule, or this is a really easy schedule, but we're not there
really good
yet.
Yeah.
This feels like everything's kind of lined up. So
they're really good, and the schedule's pretty nice.
So man, it's you got to get it done. But I think when we talk to Mike Norvell and the players tomorrow, I think they're certainly not going to back down from it. We know that.
Well, they're emboldened by the fact that they have more talent than the vast majority of the teams they're going to play, certainly if you're talking about their offense versus opposing defenses. The more interesting question and pressure is on the defensive staff, without question. It is about whether or not Randy Shannon can get this done with the linebackers. It's about whether or not we see more consistency from Adam Fuller in this defense against good offenses. They had great days at the office against average teams, but when they played good offenses, they really struggled. There's no getting around that. Now, they may have the tools to do that. That's the point you've brought up. Like, they might do it. They might. But if they don't, there are going to be hard questions asked, and there's no getting around that. This is a sink or swim business. You either get it done or you don't. Now, maybe that's a different scale than we used to look at, because it used to be when we talked about dominant defenses, they held people under 17 points. The modern games and offensive weaponry, you see the rules are in favor of the offense. So I don't know what that number is anymore per se, but we'll know what it looks like. We'll be able to define it. If they don't get stops against good teams, we're going to say, I'm not sure Adam Fuller's the guy. And I like Adam Fuller.
Well, and you look at some of those games they lost where we felt like the defense didn't play well. In a lot of those cases, the offense didn't play well either. If the offense had put up 35 points, they probably would have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I've been on both sides at different times. And and again, I was talking to somebody earlier today here, just one of the other media types. And, you look back to the NC State game. I mean, it's kind of ludicrous that they didn't score. They didn't score more. The defense played well in the first half of that.
That's the last such game. I mean, that was the only time we saw the frustration boil over, and where you had an outward manifestation of that frustration on camera from the head coach to the quarterback back to the head coach. Right. That was fascinating. Something clicked after that, though, and they had a meeting and things worked out, and now we don't think that's going to be the case. It will be fascinating, though, to see if this defense can live up to that, because they do have guys up front now on the interior. And, guys, we don't know. We don't have an answer on the waiver. We brought this up earlier. We don't know anything else. It is a big deal. And I think we are getting concerned as we get set to enter August and start camp. They are a different – if he is motivated to play and it's a money year, and he gets the waiver and he's in shape, which I think he'll be, they can be an entirely different group up front. He can be a dominant player. He hasn't been yet. He's been a wildly inconsistent player in his career. But this is the time, man. I mean, this is the speech. This is the moment you say to that kid, you may not have to love football. You may not even like football. You may not be interested in day-to-day, working as hard as you can. But you have a gift. You're 6'5", 325 pounds. You're built like an Adonis. You're strong as hell. Nobody can block you when you're mad. We've watched it at practice. Yeah. When he decides he's going to wreck a play, he wrecks a play.
If he's available.
It's a big if. It's a big if. They need that guy.
Yeah, but, the one nice thing is, I would say this. There have been teams where if you didn't have that one guy, you're doomed. I don't think that's the case for Florida State. It's not like if they announce bad news at some point, It's not like, the season's over. But it does change the complexion for sure.
It does. I want to bring something up to you, man, since we're wrapping up the show here. I want to bring up that you seem, and I like it because I'm kind of leaning in the same direction as you on this one. You seem to think Destin Hill is going to play a big role in this team this year. I can sense it. You bring it up a lot, and I think that's interesting. We have a question about him possibly returning punts or being on special teams, and talk a little bit about what you're thinking.
Well, I mean, I just again, man, just from as soon as he got here, just talking to people, around the program who got to see him, and we're like, okay, this is the real deal. This is a different level of athlete than just another kid coming in. I mean, there's a reason he was so dynamic in high school, and he did, he has not played football in 2 years. And when I talked to David Johnson, a few weeks ago for a video, he said, yeah, rust is a concern, but man, we've spent, the last couple of months on that. And so they feel like he's going to be ready to go. And I don't know whether or not he's going to catch 30 balls, but I do think he's going to be on the field at receiver. And I definitely think he's going to be in the return game. I just don't think that game reps, from season to season is that big of a deal in the return game. So I think he's definitely going to play a factor there. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's in the rotation at receiver.
I was duly impressed. I always look at players. I always gauge how players react to somebody else's talent. Coaches say this all the time. It is very true. We know it's true. Players.
Trey Benson.
Yeah, Trey Benson's reaction when asked about him. I mean, players recognize who's otherworldly gifted. And I don't care who you are, what sport you're in. We all understand. We've all played everything from junior whatever all the way up through high school. When you play, there's talent, and then there's that guy that makes everybody go, oh, my God, look at that. That's different. And when you see it, it's instantaneous. Their reactions to his speed seem to fit that umbrella, like oh, my God, that's different.
Right, and that's kind of what I was reacting to. The way it was explained to me was, man, like, if this translates, what they had seen from him just once he got on campus to on the field with pads, and man, he's a football player, I think it will, then, he's going to be stealing reps. That's the way it was explained to me.
All right, so we're back first thing in the morning, everybody. This has been fun. We are going to go have dinner
Yes.
We're going to exhale for a moment. We got here early. We will be here early tomorrow. We're looking forward to it. Florida State loaded content. Like and subscribe. You guys already know that, but be ready for it. Anything else you want to unveil there that we have coming for them? We already talked about a Wake Up's got a show. We got the JCS tomorrow. I know you've got columns to write, and we've got a lot of video.
Yeah, we do. We certainly
Ton of
do.
video.
And it's going to start early tomorrow. And the one thing I would tell you tomorrow is when you go to the YouTube channel and you go to Warchant TV, be cognizant of the fact that you're going to see several of the same players and coaches kind of talking. Like, we're going to get Mike Norvell and the players in the breakout room. Then they're also in a local media opportunity. That'll be the first thing you see. Then you'll see them at a press conference. Then you'll see them in breakout rooms. Then you'll see them on your guys' show and also on Aslan's show. So you're going to see a bunch of different options. I would just try to watch them all because it's not the same thing. I mean, these are all different conversations, and I think the least interesting probably is going to be the one in the big press conference. The one that's going to look really pretty is them in the big press conference, but that's usually the least interesting questions and answers because those guys aren't real fired up about standing in front of a ballroom of 500 seats answering questions. The better answers are going to be in the more intimate settings, but don't watch one of those videos and feel like, okay, you know everything they said.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of content.
I think a lot of times people watch that first video and then they go, well, we still haven't heard from Jeff.
Right.
So let's just wait until that happens and then maybe we'll wrap it up. I'm kidding, everybody. By the way, thank you, Tamika Jones. I saw your comment here. She writes, new here, love the content.
Thanks, Tamika.
Thanks, Tamika. Welcome aboard. Yeah, appreciate you having me.
Thanks to everybody else, and also thanks to James B. and anybody else who contributed to the affair.
And lest we forget, our friend Russ Voorhis.
And Russ,
Damn
for
it,
sure.
Ira. Come on, baby. I can't do everything for you now. Let's get it done.
Give Russ a call. He's a really good guy and longtime Nole, and he'll do good business for you.
Good job, Ben. Good job, Tom. We're done here for tonight at the ACC Kickoff in Charlotte, North Carolina. Packed tomorrow, so come on back. Make sure you do it. Like and subscribe.